In 1980, a U.S. military officer secretly recorded himself confronting a UFO in a forest next to nuclear weapons. The recording still exists. So does his official report to his own government. This isn't a theory. It's a declassified military document. And to this day, the U.S. Air Force has never fully explained what happened in that forest. Some stories were never meant to be found. This one almost wasn't found either. It sat buried in a military filing cabinet for years, marked with a warning that most people never saw. It wasn't written by a conspiracy theorist. It wasn't written by a UFO hunter. It was written by a lieutenant colonel of the United States Air Force to his own government. He called it Unexplained Lights of Unknown Origin. The British press would later call it Britain's Roswell. The place was a forest, not a swamp in Louisiana, not a desert in New Mexico. A quiet pine forest in the English countryside, next to two NATO air bases holding some of the most powerful nuclear weapons on Earth. And for 3 nights in December of 1980, something happened there that the military still has never fully explained. RAF Woodbridge, Suffolk, England. December 26, 1980. Just after 3 in the morning. 2 U.S. Air Force security patrolmen are manning the east gate of the base. It's cold. It's routine. Nothing happens out here until something does. Lights descending through the trees at the edge of Rendlesham Forest. Not the kind of lights you'd see from a plane. No engine sound. No blinking pattern. Just a glow dropping down into the woods like it was landing. The patrolmen radio it in. Their sergeant assumes it's a downed aircraft. He organizes a small team to go investigate. 3 men, on foot, into the forest in the dark. One of those men is Airman First Class John Burroughs. Decades later, he would describe what he saw calmly, without theatrics, the way a soldier describes a fact, a triangular object, metallic, sitting in a clearing among the trees, lights pulsing across its surface, and close to it, the air felt different, charged. They also noticed the animals. Farm animals in the area, normally quiet at that hour, were reportedly going into a panic. The kind of frantic distress you'd expect from a predator nearby, not a light in the sky. The men approached, and then, according to their own later accounts, the object began to move. Not like something falling, but like something choosing to leave. It lifted from the clearing and disappeared beyond the trees. By the time backup arrived and the area was searched properly, the forest was empty. No wreckage, no crash site. But there were marks. 3 small triangular indentations pressed into the ground, arranged in a pattern, exactly where the men said the object had been sitting. The next night, December 27th, the base commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, deputy commander of the 81st Tactical Fighter Wing, decided to see the site for himself in daylight. What his team found didn't look like a hoax. It looked like a landing. Halt's team took a Geiger counter to the depressions in the ground. The radiation readings at the site were reportedly higher than the surrounding area. Not extreme, but measurable, and localized exactly where the marks were. They also found broken branches high in the canopy, snapped from above, as if something had come down through the treetops rather than around them. That night, the lights came back, and this time, Halt didn't send junior patrolmen. He went into the forest himself, with a tape recorder running the entire time. That recording still exists today. It is one of the only real-time audio documents of a military officer narrating a UFO encounter as it happens in his own voice to his own men. On the tape, Halt's voice is measured, almost bored at first, the voice of a man doing his job. Then it changes. He describes a red pulsing light through the trees, then something that looks like an eye, watching them from a distance, blinking on and off. Then, more lights, some of them moving in ways that Halt himself says, on the recording, don't match anything conventional. Lights that split apart. Lights that shot beams of light down toward the ground near the weapons storage area of the base. That last detail is the one that unsettled people the most, then and now, because that part of the base wasn't just any part of the base. It was where the nuclear weapons were kept. Weeks later, Lieutenant Colonel Halt did something extraordinary. He wrote it all down, an official memorandum addressed up his own chain of command, describing everything his men had witnessed over those 3 nights. It wasn't a leak. It wasn't a rumor. It was a U.S. Air Force officer formally reporting, on the record, that unexplained lights had been observed near a nuclear weapons storage facility on foreign soil, and that the explanation was unknown. The memo eventually became public through a Freedom of Information request. Once it did, it changed the entire conversation. This wasn't an unreliable witness or a fringe claim. This was a documented military report, written by the man in charge, sitting quietly in government files for years. Halt never once in the decades that followed walked the story back. He maintained on record that what he and his men experienced that December had no conventional explanation, and that something physical, not imagined, had been present in that forest. Over the years, skeptics have offered alternative explanations. Some pointed to a nearby lighthouse at Orford Ness, its rotating beam visible through the trees at certain angles. Others suggested the men had simply misjudged bright stars or a meteor breaking up on re-entry that same night. Those explanations account for some of what was reported. A distant light through trees can trick the eye. A meteor can look like something descending. But they don't fully account for the physical impressions in the ground. They don't explain the elevated radiation readings recorded independently by multiple people. And they don't explain why a man like Charles Halt, trained, sober, and fully aware of how the story would follow him for the rest of his career, never changed his account, which leaves the case exactly where it's remained for over 40 years, partially explained and partially not. Today, the site in Rendlesham Forest is marked with a small trail marker, put up years later, a quiet acknowledgement, in a quiet English wood, of one of the strangest nights in modern military history. No wreckage was ever recovered. No official cause was ever confirmed. What's left is a tape recording, a memo, and a handful of men who never changed their story. Some say it was a lighthouse. Some say it was something else entirely, something that came down through the trees on purpose, and chose, just as deliberately, to leave. Some stories were never meant to be found. Maybe this one wasn't meant to be forgotten either. So, was it a lighthouse and a bad night's sleep, or something that actually landed in that forest? Tell me what you think in the comments, and if you want to go further down this road, the next case is waiting. Subscribe to the Unburied, because some of these stories go a lot deeper than this one. End.